Here is a truth television history rarely admits. The 9 seasons of Night Court turned a Manhattan courtroom into the most gloriously chaotic place on American television. But the lives the cast lived away from that bench? That is where the real stories begin. And some of them will break your heart. For nearly a decade, from 1984 to 1992, NBC's Night Court was appointment television, a surreal, rapid-fire comedy set in the graveyard shift of a New York City arraignment court. It was weird. It was warm. It was unlike anything else on prime time, but the people who populated that courtroom, the actors who made us laugh until we cried, carried secrets, struggles, and second acts that no script could have invented. Let's walk back into that courtroom. But this time we are staying after the credits roll. When Night Court first aired in 1984, Harry Anderson was just 31 years old. But he was not a typical sitcom leading man. Before he ever put on a judge's robe, Anderson was a street magician, a working illusionist, who had cut his teeth performing card tricks for tips on the boardwalks of Florida and the streets of Los Angeles. He had stumbled into acting almost by accident, when a producer saw his act and thought that offbeat, slightly anarchic energy might work on television. That energy became Judge Harry T. Stone. Across all 193 episodes, Anderson brought something genuinely unusual to prime time. A judge who loved magic, adored Mel Tormé, and treated the law less like a rulebook and more like a suggestion. He was the irreplaceable center of the entire show. The calm, quirky eye of a hurricane that included a lecherous prosecutor, a gentle giant of a bailiff, and a revolving door of public defenders. In his personal life, Anderson's first marriage to Leslie Pollock lasted from 1977 to 1999 and produced 2 children. After that chapter closed, he found a second act with Elizabeth Morgan in 2000. A relationship that held steady until the very end. Away from the set, Anderson was deeply devoted to the city of New Orleans, where he lived for years, performed magic regularly, and owned a beloved nightclub called Oswald's Speakeasy. He eventually relocated to North Carolina, but the Big Easy never left him. Harry Anderson passed away on April 16, 2018, at just 65 years old. The cause was a stroke. The loss hit the Night Court community with a grief nobody was remotely prepared for. His former castmates described him as the beating heart of the show. And they meant it literally. Selma Diamond was 63 years old when Night Court began. And she was already a living legend of American comedy long before the show ever found her. She had spent decades as one of the very few female writers in the golden age of television, crafting jokes for legends like Sid Caesar and Jackie Gleason, at a time when women behind the camera were practically invisible. As the gravelly-voiced, completely unflappable Selma Hacker, across 36 episodes, she turned every line reading into something effortlessly funny. She never raised her voice. She never needed to. Her withering asides could cut down Dan Fielding faster than any legal argument. She never married. Diamond famously joked that her career had simply left no room for it. But that punchline contained more truth than comedy. She was a workaholic in the best sense, devoted to the craft of making people laugh. A lifelong heavy smoker, she was diagnosed with lung cancer during the show's 2nd season. She kept working right through it with a professionalism that left her castmates in awe. She rarely complained. She showed up, delivered her lines, and made everyone forget she was sick. Selma Diamond passed away on May 13, 1985, at just 64 years old. Her death hit the show so hard that her character's passing was written directly into the storyline. The episode where the cast mourns Selma Hacker is one of the most heartbreaking moments in sitcom history, because the grief was real. John Larroquette was 36 years old when Night Court premiered. And the character he created, Dan Fielding, the most aggressively self-serving, woman-chasing prosecutor in television history, was a masterpiece of comic villainy. Larroquette played him with such committed, shameless energy that he won 4 consecutive Emmy Awards for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. That is not a typo. 4 in a row. Now 78 years old in 2026. The contrast between Dan Fielding and the real man behind him could not be more complete. Larroquette has been married to Elizabeth Cookson since 1975. More than 50 years with the same person. They have 3 children together, a family life built with a quiet steadiness that Dan Fielding would have considered catastrophically boring. But here is where the story gets deeper. Beyond the marriage, Larroquette has been openly candid for decades about his past struggle with alcoholism. He has celebrated over 40 years of sobriety, a personal victory he speaks about with honesty and a complete lack of self-pity. That candor has made him one of the most genuinely respected voices on addiction in the entire entertainment industry in recent years. Larroquette reprised the role of Dan Fielding in the 2023 Night Court revival, winning a new generation of fans and proving that some characters and some actors only get better with age. Marsha Warfield was 32 years old when she joined Night Court in 1986. She stepped into a role, the second female bailiff, that had already claimed 2 previous actresses. Selma Diamond and Florence Halop both lost to lung cancer. But Warfield made Roz Russell so completely and distinctly her own, across 136 episodes, that it is almost impossible to imagine anyone else in the part. Now 72 years old in 2026, Warfield held a chapter of her personal life carefully private for years. She came out publicly as gay in 2017, explaining that she had stayed in the closet specifically to protect her mother. It was a decision made out of love rather than shame, and one she discussed with a directness and warmth that earned her enormous respect from the LGBTQ+ community. She finally stepped fully into. Before Night Court, Warfield had built a solid stand-up comedy career on the road. That foundation gave Roz a credibility and comic timing that pure acting training rarely produces on its own. She was not playing a tough character. She was tough, and warm, and real. After Night Court ended, Warfield continued to act occasionally, but largely stepped back from the spotlight. She remains one of the most beloved and respected figures from the show's later seasons. Richard Moll stood 6'8" tall. When he shaved his head for the role of Bull Shannon, he created one of the most immediately recognizable physical presences in the history of American sitcoms. He was 41 years old when Night Court began, and Bull, the gentle, sweet, slightly bewildered giant, became the heart of the courtroom across all 193 episodes. But here is what most fans did not know. Away from Night Court, Moll was a prolific voice actor. He lent his deep, resonant voice to dozens of animated series, including Batman, the animated series, where he played Harvey Dent, Two-Face. He had a whole other career dimension that casual fans never knew existed. In his personal life, Moll was married twice, to Laura Klass from 1988 to 1992, and then to Susan Brown from 1993 to 2005, with whom he had 2 children. He navigated away from the spotlight with the same quiet gentleness his most famous character embodied. Richard Moll passed away on October 26, 2023, at the age of 80. His death was one of the most recent losses this cast has suffered, and fans around the world mourned the gentle giant who had made them laugh for nearly a decade. Florence Halop was 62 years old when she joined Night Court in 1985, brought in to fill the enormous void left by Selma Diamond's passing. She brought a completely different energy to the female bailiff role. Sharper, more street smart, with a delivery that felt like it had been honed across 40 years of working in the entertainment industry. Because it had. Halop had been a child actress in the 1930s. She had been a radio performer in the 1940s. She had worked steadily but never broken through. Then, in her 60s, television found her again, giving her one of the most unlikely late career revivals the industry has ever produced. In her personal life, she had been married to George Gruskin from 1948 until his death in 1976, raising 2 daughters together through a marriage that lasted nearly 3 decades. Florence Halop passed away on July 15, 1986, at just 63 years old. The cause was lung cancer, the same disease that had taken Selma Diamond the season before. The eerie coincidence deepened the sense among fans and casts alike that the female bailiff role carried a genuinely tragic shadow. Brent Spiner was 36 years old during his recurring appearances on Night Court. Between 1985 and 1987, He played Bob Wheeler, possibly the unluckiest man in the history of the Manhattan court system. Across 7 episodes, Spiner unleashed a physical, rubber-faced comedy completely unlike anything he would later become famous for. His scenes are still quoted by die-hard fans, decades later, now 77 years old in 2026. The role that defined Spiner's entire career was still ahead of him when he walked those night court halls. 2 years after his last Bob Wheeler appearance, Star Trek: The Next Generation premiered, and Spiner became a global icon as the android Data. That role turned him into a fiction legend. But he never forgot where he came from. In his personal life, Spiner married Laurie McBride in 2001, and the two have one son together, Jackson. It is a warm, grounded family life that he has spoken about with genuine gratitude. His affection for night court never faded either. He returned to play Bob Wheeler in the 2023 revival series, delighting an entirely new generation of fans. Ellen Foley was 33 years old when she joined Night Court for its second season in 1984. She brought a bright, quick-witted energy to public defender Billy, young across 19 episodes. So much so that her departure after just one season was genuinely felt by viewers, who had quickly warmed to her. Now 74 years old in 2026, most music fans know her name for something that has nothing to do with television. She is the woman whose voice soars across one of the greatest rock recordings ever made, singing opposite Meat Loaf on Paradise by the Dashboard Light. That performance has been played billions of times across 5 decades. It is immortal. She left Night Court after one season specifically to return her focus to her music career. A decision that made complete sense, given what she was walking back toward. Foley also had a successful Broadway career and continued recording music for years. In her personal life, she married writer Doug Bernstein on April 29, 1990, and the two have raised 2 sons together in a life built equally between music, theater, and family. Charles Robinson was 38 years old when he joined Night Court for its second season. He brought a quiet, steady warmth to court clerk Mac Robinson across 180 episodes, making him one of the most essential and consistently underrated members of the entire ensemble. A veteran of the Actors Studio, with serious dramatic credentials behind him, Robinson brought a depth to Mac that elevated what could have been a purely functional supporting role into something genuinely human and memorable. In his personal life, Robinson was married 3 times, to Arvis Robinson, then Venus Duran, and finally to Doretta Noonan Robinson from 1996 until his death. He had 4 children across those chapters of his life. Charles Robinson passed away on July 11, 2021, at the age of 75. The cause was cardiac arrest and organ failure, following septic shock and metastatic adenocarcinoma. His loss came just weeks after Markie Post's own passing, making the summer of 2021 one of the most grief-filled seasons this cast ever experienced. Karen Astin was 28 years old when Night Court first aired in 1984. She played court clerk Lana Wagner across 14 episodes during the show's opening season, bringing a warm, natural likability to the role that made her sudden disappearance from the show one of the most talked about behind-the-scenes mysteries of that entire year. Now 70 years old in 2026, what actually happened has never been fully settled. Astin herself stated she was let go after being diagnosed with Bell's palsy, a condition causing facial paralysis, which producers allegedly felt was affecting her performance on camera. A separate account from a set comedian claimed her removal came after a violent altercation with Harry Anderson himself. Both stories circulated for years. Neither was ever officially confirmed or denied. That ambiguity has left Lana Wagner, one of Season 1's most likable faces, connected to one of the show's most unresolved backstage questions. In her personal life, Astin had been married to Chris Slava from 1975 to 1982. A chapter she moved on from quietly, long before the Night Court controversy ever found her. She continued acting sporadically, but never achieved the same level of visibility again. Mel Tormé was 58 years old when he first appeared on Night Court in 1984, the man they called the Velvet Fog. brought one of the most genuinely distinctive musical presences in American entertainment history into that Manhattan courtroom. Across 10 recurring appearances spanning the entire run of the show, here is what made the magic work. The connection was not manufactured for television. Harry Anderson was a real and devoted Mel Tormé obsessive. He knew Tormé's catalog backward and forward, and that genuine admiration translated into a warmth on screen that no scripted dynamic could have produced. Tormé himself openly credited Night Court with introducing his music to an entirely new generation of younger viewers, effectively giving his career a second wind at exactly the right moment. In his personal life, Tormé was married 4 times, to actress Candy Toxton, then Arlene Miles, then Jeanette Scott, before finally finding lasting partnership with Ali Saverson in 1984. She remained by his side until the very end. Mel Tormé passed away on June 5, 1999, at the age of 73 from complications following a stroke. His appearances on Night Court remain some of the most beloved cameos in sitcom history. Paula Kelly was 41 years old when she joined Night Court for its first season. In 1984, she brought serious Juilliard-trained credentials to public defender Liz Williams, a level of dramatic depth that earned her an Emmy nomination for the role and made her departure after just 1 season feel like a genuine loss for the show. Her background as an accomplished dancer gave every scene a physical grace that pure acting training rarely produces on its own. She had already appeared on Broadway and in films like Sweet Charity before coming to television. In her personal life, she married British director Don Chaffee in 1985, and the two had 1 daughter together before his death. In 1990, ended that chapter far sooner than anyone expected. She later found companionship with George Parkington from 2003 onward, a relationship that brought her steadiness through her later years. Paula Kelly passed away on February 8, 2020, at the age of 77. She was a performer of real substance whose single season on Night Court represented only a fraction of what she was genuinely capable of. John Astin was 54 years old during his first Night Court appearance in 1984. He brought one of the most beloved and recognizable faces in American television history into the courtroom as Buddy Ryan, Harry's wonderfully unhinged father figure. Across 11 recurring episodes, most of the world will always know Astin first as Gomez Addams from The Addams Family. That performance, so completely and joyfully committed, became permanently embedded in the cultural memory of multiple generations. Now an extraordinary 96 years old in 2026, Astin is the oldest living member of this entire cast by a considerable margin, and he is still active, still sharp, still occasionally making convention appearances and delighting fans. In his personal life, Astin's most publicly known marriage was to actress Patty Duke from 1972 to 1985, a relationship through which he raised her son, Sean Astin, who went on to become one of his generation's most recognizable actors. The Goonies, Rudy, The Lord of the Rings. Since 1989, Astin has been married to Valerie Ann Sandall, a partnership that has now lasted over 3.5 decades and counting. Joleen Lutz was 26 years old when she joined Night Court for its 8th season in 1990. She brought a bubbly, pop, scene-stealing energy to receptionist Lizette. Across 46 episodes during the show's final 2 seasons, becoming one of the most fondly remembered additions to the later cast, despite arriving relatively late in the run. Now 62 years old in 2026, her path after Night Court ended took one of the most dramatic turns of anyone connected to this series. She walked away from acting entirely. First, she transitioned into professional stunt work, a rare and difficult pivot. Then she stepped away from the entertainment industry altogether to retrain as a clinical psychologist. Yes, you read that correctly. The bubbly receptionist from the final seasons of Night Court became a licensed therapist. That is not a career change. That is a complete reinvention. In her personal life, she was married to David Lutz from 1984 until 1991, a marriage that ended around the same time her television career was at its most visible. That made those years a period of significant personal transition happening simultaneously with her professional peak. William Utay was 37 years old when Night Court began in 1984. He became one of the show's most quietly beloved recurring presences across 35 episodes spanning the entire 9-year run. First, he played Phil Sanders, the wealthy but deeply miserable lackey to Dan Fielding. Then, after the writers memorably killed Phil off by dropping a piano on him, Utay returned as Phil's twin brother Will. Think about that for a moment. The show's writers loved William Utay so much that they invented an identical twin to bring the same actor back. That tells you everything about how much they valued what he brought to the ensemble. Now 78 years old in 2026, Utay has maintained an almost complete wall of privacy around his personal life throughout his entire career. No documented relationships, no public record of marriage or partnership. He has let the work speak entirely for itself, across decades of consistent, reliable character acting. Markie Post was 34 years old when she joined Night Court for its third season in 1985. She stepped into the public defender role and made Christine Sullivan the emotional and moral center of the entire show across 159 episodes. She was the warm, principled heart that kept the courtroom's glorious chaos from spinning completely off its axis. Her chemistry with John Larroquette's Dan Fielding became one of the most beloved will they, or won't they dynamics in 1980s television. It was a slow-burn romance that kept viewers invested for years, and neither character ever fully acted on it, which somehow made it even more powerful. In her personal life, Post married writer and actor Michael A. Ross in 1982. The same year she joined The Fall Guy. 3 years before Night Court found her. The two remained completely devoted to each other for 39 years, raising 2 daughters together in a marriage that endured everything the industry could throw at it. Markie Post passed away on August 7, 2021, at the age of 70 after a long and private battle with cancer. Her passing came just weeks before Charles Robinson's own death, turning that summer into a period of profound collective grief. For everyone who had loved this show, Jack Riley was 51 years old during his Night Court appearances in the mid-1980s. He brought one of television's most reliably funny recurring gags to life. Bo the Clown, the childhood entertainer whose very existence sent Judge Harry Stone into a spiral of barely suppressed trauma, and Dan Fielding into barely suppressed rage. It was the kind of absurdist recurring bit that only works when the performer playing it understands exactly how committed the joke requires him to be. And Riley was absolutely that performer. Most television fans of a certain generation know Riley best as the perpetually complaining Mr. Carlin from The Bob Newhart Show. A character built so completely on neurotic dissatisfaction that it became one of the defining comic creations of 1970s American television. In his personal life, Riley was married to Ginger Lawrence from 1970 until his death. 46 years with the same person, 2 children, a life built with a warmth and stability completely removed from the anxious characters he spent his career playing. Jack Riley passed away on August 19, 2016, at the age of 80. His obituaries all mention both Mr. Carlin and Bo the Clown. 2 very different characters, both unforgettable. Denise Kumagai was 28 years old when Night Court began in 1984. She appeared across 18 recurring episodes, spanning the show's entire 9-year run, as Mac's Vietnamese wife. Quan Le, a character whose beautifully literal interpretation of American idioms and customs became one of the show's most consistently charming running threads. The role required precise comic timing that made the humor feel warm and human rather than reductive, and Kumagai navigated that balance with a delicacy that gave Quan Le a genuine dignity beneath every laugh the character earned. Her personal life has been kept in complete privacy throughout her entire career. No documented relationships, no public record of any kind beyond the performances themselves. It is a wall of privacy she has maintained, just as completely as the show's run was long. She stepped away from the spotlight after Night Court ended and has remained there ever since. Quan Le remains the lasting, classy fondly remembered testament to everything Kumagai brought to that courtroom. Final verdict: 9 seasons, 18 remarkable performers, hundreds of episodes. And behind every laugh line, every pratfall, every perfectly timed wisecrack, there were real human beings living real lives. Some joyful, some tragic, some mysterious, and all of them unforgettable. The courtroom may have been fictional. The chaos may have been scripted. But the people who brought those characters to life, they were the real thing. And that is the real verdict of Night Court.